Welcome to Business Line's State of the Economy podcast, where you'll find insight, analysis, and the story behind the numbers.
Hello and welcome to the State of the Economy podcast. I'm Jyothi Datta. Today we look at Indian drugs and vaccines, which, as many of us know, have been part of the international healthcare landscape for a long time now, even before the COVID pandemic. But while the COVID emergency is over, there are many other global storms that continue to rage over trade, be it geopolitical challenges, supply chain issues, quality issues, and so on. And we look at how pharmaceutical exports from India have fared, and also what are some of the milestones and roadblocks to look out for. We have just the right person to give us this inside track. Our guest today is Mr. Udaya Bhaskar, Director General of the Pharmaceuticals Export Promotion Council of India, or as many of us refer to it as Pharmexcil. Thank you, Mr. Udaya Bhaskar, for being here.
Thank you.
Right. So, pharma exports, we know, stood at 25 billion up to March 2023. How would you rate this performance, and do you see some regions doing better than the others?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to have a conversation with you on this very interesting the topic. So last year, as you know, that we exported 25.4 billion US dollars worth of drugs to different, almost 200 countries. So we are short of our target of 27 billion. But if you assess the global situation and the headwinds, so I'm very much satisfied with this because our largest exporting continents are the NAFTA, US, Mexico, and Canada comes under that NAFTA, and Europe and US and Africa. So unfortunately, the Africa we recorded minus 5.3% negative growth, and CIS negative growth of 8.4%. Actually, this the Africa, our share is 14.36%. Despite that, our exports to Europe is recorded at 13.5%, and we exported almost 5 billion worth of drugs. And US, we revived very well, and we recorded 6.8% growth rate. The contribution of US NAFTA is 32%. So and CIS also we were not doing well. As you know that the Russia-Ukraine war has played a very disturbing role, particularly our exports to CIS region. Despite all these things, and we achieved this 25.40 billion US dollars with exports with 3.25%. I'm a satisfied man. I think you sometimes, depending on the situation, the exports, and it's not only depends on the country who is exporting. It's all depends on the importing countries, political economy, and other issues also.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. As you point that out, with the whole geopolitical issues concerning the Russia and Ukraine war. But staying with that, it's only the storm clouds kind of continue in that sense. There is strained relations between US and China, so how concerned are you for the year ahead when you see, such trade issues?
So in 23-24, we have an ambitious target of 28 billion, with a hope that our markets, particularly the traditionally strong market like African continent and CIS, will revive. That is our hope. And at the same time, the individual countries like UK is earlier it was in the top 5 export destinations, and the South Africa. These are all were negative in 20 to 23. But 23-24, I think we may touch 28 billion with a very, very ambitious growth rate. We fixed around 7%. That is 7 to 8%. So it's again exports is a different ballgame, and it's if it is particularly the global situation is changing from time to time, and the conflict of Russia, Ukraine, and the Europe is also taking a very strong stand and consolidating their sanctions against Russia. And the US is also not in good terms with the China, and everybody is talking about one plus China. I think these are all very, very tough and challenging times. Despite that, I'm very optimistic and ambitious. We may touch around 28 billion.
Right. Sure. So one of the headlines of the recent months, if you will, has been, on the what the WHO flagged in terms of what they call contaminated cough syrups and possible deaths linked to it. Then now more recently, we've seen the eye drops issue. Why do you think this is happening, sir? Especially since, India has GMP norms or good manufacturing practices in place.
I strongly feel that, this is once the human beings are involved in the manufacturing process, such a big industry of India, nowhere in the world having 3,500 companies and 10,000 licenses at different places. So it's not an easy task. If you see our history of exports, we are exporting crores of batches to different countries. Particularly 55% of our exports are going to highly regulated markets. And only US and Europe put together, it is almost more than 50%. So there are stringent regulatory agencies, but we never had this kind of a problem. So what I feel very bad about the incidents and loss of human lives. This is, I feel it as an aberration. It has not created any havoc as far as our export figures are concerned, financially, value-wise. But there is a lot of discussions are happening throughout the world. Couple of days back, Nigeria also flagged the issue of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol manufactured by one Mumbai company. So all these factors, what I feel, there is a lack as far as the manufacturers are concerned, the people who are involved in this. At the same time, till the DCJ has issued guidelines 1 month back about the guidelines of testing of ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol. It was not there earlier. So nothing mandates the manufacturers to test and come out with this. So this a new issue, and I call it as an aberration. But it dented the image of India. So instead of the recent guidelines issued by DGFT as well as the DCJ put together testing before exports, that I don't think that is going to enhance your image globally. That is, you are shifting the responsibility of the manufacturer to the government labs. So what I feel, these guidelines are to be strictly followed, and we should make obligatory and compulsory on part of the manufacturers to manufacture a product of efficacious quality, and they should be responsible for their product. The Drugs and Cosmetics Act allows the manufacturer, whoever it may be, the tests carried out in their quality control laboratory. The certificate of analysis is valid. So most of the US, they're testing only random, and we are exporting based on the COA of the manufacturer. Of course, Europe is testing their products, the port of landing, and Africa, Nigeria is doing pre-testing. So this kind of a step, it's only to send a message that we are concerned about it, but I don't think it is going to repair the entire system. Take for example, the exports of the cough syrups are not even the 15 million. Our exports are 25.4 billion last year. We have a target of 28 billion. In that process, we have to do more than these kind of simple things. The thing is that you need to upgrade the current schedule M or the CGMP, Good Manufacturing Practices. So the draft was published in 2019, I believe. So it was not made as a law. So we need to upgrade our systems. We need to upgrade our Schedule M. We need to upgrade our good manufacturing practices on par with the stringent regulatory agencies. And it should be complied. There should be a strong vigilance. As far as I am concerned, when it was only 35 inspectors, the entire staff of CDSC was 35, 15 years back. Now they have more than 1,000 people. They need to have more inspections, more vigilance on the identified states and identified areas and identified formulations. So the state regulators as well as the central regulators, they should work together, and they should be more vigilant in the sense they should be very judicious in the inspections. So particularly everything is coming from few states. So we should be more vigilant in those particular states. At the same time, you need to upgrade. Once again, you need to upgrade. It is too late. And you should be very strong enough to take a very serious action against the people who violates the provisions of Drugs and Cosmetics Act. That's what I feel.
That's true. That's very strong words coming from you. And I think, the fact that you need stringent regulatory systems and implementation, that's very clear. You think initiatives like track and trace and, apart from strengthening good manufacturing practices, I think your office, you all had all of these systems in terms of track and trace to make sure that, that the drugs being sent out are the ones that are arriving at the consumers' residences as well. So would that help in terms of both local and international markets, or is just one more tool to ensure that the supply chains are not tampered with?
Yeah, that is one more tool, as you have rightly mentioned. This traceability and track and trace only can say that it is going from India, the place of manufacturing, where it is manufactured, and from where it is going. So but that is not going to address all the problems what we have today. The best solution is to upgrade your the systems, and systems are to be executed properly. So instead of taking the responsibility of compliance, take for example, I'm going back to your point about recent initiative testing before exports, etc.
Great.
So you're sending a message that the companies who are issuing certificate of analysis are not reliable. I'll put it in this way. So instead of doing that, you should make the manufacturer, you have issued the guidelines. What kind of a limit should be there in that cough syrup of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol? You identify the manufacturers who are manufacturing these products, and you should thoroughly inspect, and you have to identify the vendors who are supplying this propylene glycol and ethylene glycol and all these are to be more constructive rather than coming up tomorrow some cancer drugs will be having a problem. Again, are you going to introduce that all the cancer drugs are to be tested before export? So basing on this, this only drop in the ocean. Instead of not doing anything, we are telling the world that we are doing something.
Right.
So we should go to the root cause analysis. That's what I feel. We are doing well, and we should make our manufacturers to be on the track. And they are doing well. Most of the people are doing very well. Otherwise, we will not go to this level. And you need not be having any second thought. This trace. As far as the domestic consumer is concerned, the Minister of Health also introduced this barcoding for 300 products. That certainly they're going to help us, but that is not going to stop. Even the Minister of Commerce is going to implement track and trace from 1st August 2023. They keeps on postponing on the request of the manufacturers and the companies. So at least in that will give some sort of an accountability and traceability. But that doesn't mean this track and trace is going to resolve the existing problems of the quality issues.
Correct. You do need to have strong manufacturing and guidelines to tell you what is permitted and what is not.
Yes.
So I'm shifting geographies here, sir. So in the US, we see now, reports of medicine shortages. Now we know that India supplies 40% of their generics. Do you see India playing a role here? And is this happening because Indian companies are moving up the value chain as well? Of course, and the other US FDA related issues?
The shortage of drugs is always there, not only in US and in most of the countries. Even in India also, I believe, I don't know whether today our state regulators in the CDSCO is doing their job or not. Every month we need to find out what is the products which are shortage in the market. That is the role of the regulator to identify where is the shortage and what kind of a shortage is and what are the medicines and what are the reasons responsible. In US, the shortage is there from so many years. So particularly what happens, I strongly feel that if I'm manufacturing one X product, if my manufacturing facility is inspected by some regulatory agency and my facility is closed or my company got an import alert, these are the factors responsible. The other thing is that sometimes the pricing. In India, example, vitamin A. How many people are manufacturing vitamin A? There is a vitamin A shortage in India. So why they are not manufacturing is that they will say, the manufacturers say that it is in the price control. But at the interest of the country, they need to manufacture few drugs. These are the factors. If any drug price is going down, a manufacturer thinks that it's not proper to manufacture this drug. I'm not going to have any profit. At the end of the day, all the manufacturers will work for the profit. Take our case of vaccines, particularly in the pandemic. Everybody focused more on COVID vaccine production rather than the other vaccines. The reason is that the need of the hour was COVID vaccine. And the more profit they can have if they manufacture COVID vaccine, and the more the stocks they can have. Those are the factors. So I don't see any serious matter, and it is not going to have any serious impact on our exports. But what I understood from US market is that particularly in 2022 the shortage is increased nearly 30%. The reason is that they are also depending on some APIs from China. If the manufacturing facility is not inspected, and that API is being consumed by one manufacturer of the formulator. So without that, these people can't manufacture that product. So at the same time, the US FDA also reduced their inspections. They have not revived fully. So, but almost 2 years there were no inspections. There are some new facilities which are waiting for their approval. These are the factors. I don't think this is going to have any serious impact as far as our exports are concerned. We recorded our exports to US and NAFTA is more consistent, except 2 years back there was a negative growth to US. Now this last financial year also we almost recorded 6.8% growth rate and exported 8.3 billion with 32% growth. Even if you see our April exports, almost 10.5% growth. So US also equally there is a growth. So there is a problem of shortage not only in US. They are more scientific analyzing and they are more scientific in discussions. That is the reason they are very transparent in about with that kind of a news to the world.
Right. You did mention China, and I see that Pharmexcil is having an event in China later this month. What would this be
No,
about?
no, our
No.
people are there. Actually, there are 18 companies are participating in China. It's happening almost after 3 years. And our people are very enthusiastic. And there are 20 people participating, 18 to 20 people participating from Pharmexcil Pavilion. There are more manufacturers are participating, but there is a lot of movement to China from our manufacturer side. So what I understood from a few leading the manufacturer exporters of India, so China reduced their bulk drug prices also in some categories. So our people wanted to explore, and our people are very enthusiastic. Like, we may be having a geopolitical disturbances, issues with the China, but at the end of the day, we are dependent on China as far as APIs and basic chemicals and intermediates are concerned. Not only India, and the entire world is depending on them, and our people are doing business with them, and our exports are also reduced. In fact, in the last financial year, there was a reduction of minus 10.5% imports.
Right.
And in April, there was a 36% decrease in our imports. So these are all, it's a global business. Everybody identify the places, and everybody go about the viability and the price and the availability and the product. So this you can't come up with a very the policy intervention kind of a thing. As long as India is self-reliant, and then all these things will happen.
I suppose companies are also looking at having multiple, sources of their products rather than just a single source. So the
100%.
pandemic has taught them a lot. My final question, sir. So from what we've seen during the pandemic, and we saw this with vaccines, there's a lot of regionalization in manufacturing that's happening, and the African countries bore the brunt of this whole vaccine inequity. Now they are looking at having their own hubs, vaccine manufacturing facilities, and all of that. Um, when you see that, and India has been a supplier and pharmacy to the world, so as you see, how do you see these two sort of balance it out together? One side more regionalization. How do you think Indian companies will navigate that space for the future?
I was I was part of the panel discussion in Africa Health ExCon, which was held in Egypt last week. We had a serious discussions on how African pharmaceutical industry can be encouraged and how we can provide medicines to Africa. The Director General Center for Disease Control of Africa was there. In his opening remarks, what he said, unequal distribution of vaccines. That was the dialogue they have started. In that, most of the people, and one more professor was there. She is the president, advisor to the president of South Africa. So there is a feeling globally that the localization is one thing, and whenever there is a pandemic, there is a serious crisis, every country wanted to own first their people. So this is not the properly, received or not in the properly. I don't know what kind of a word I have to use. They are feeling that it is not justified. In normal circumstances, we wanted to do trade and we wanted to export and we wanted to supply. So when the situation comes, you wanted to have it for your own people, and you are not bothering about the others. Basing on that, this localization particularly during pandemic, one of the reason is that including India and so many countries, they are not ready to send. Even India banned export of paracetamol to few countries. It is a simple drug, and chloroquine to few countries. So, and every country thought that we should not depend on anybody. So at least they should be in a position to manufacture the essential drugs needed during this kind of a crisis. No country is out of this thinking process, including US also given funding to a couple of companies. The then president has given funding, and every country is talking about the localization, and Europe is talking about one plus China, and that sometimes if everybody wanted to manufacture on their own, if the countries who are capable of manufacturing on their end, what is going to be our exports and export potential? If China thinks that they're not ready to export to India, so how we can develop within a short time, how we can manufacture? These are all, you cannot see as only one single product. Every country is capable in some areas. There, the other countries need to depend on them. So this localization, sometimes you feel it is very positive, but it is sometimes I feel it is counterproductive also. When the reason for our export decline in Africa, that is one of the reasons. The countries like Nigeria, Ethiopia, and then whether they can able to do it overnight or not. Like what we are talking about, the self-reliance or reducing dependence on APIs and not depending on China. We are trying like that. Every country is working on that. I think in the coming days, the countries like Egypt is talking about that, the Bangladesh is talking about that, and Europe is talking about it, Russia is talking about it. So every country is talking in terms of that, the countries which are capable of manufacturing these generic versions or whatever it may be, any product or the vaccines. Indonesia is one of the strongest vaccine manufacturers. So these countries certainly will develop their own strengths. And nowadays they are asking India, particularly, I don't know about the other countries. Every country is asking for our investments and our collaboration and providing employment to their own people. Nobody wanted to see India only as a trader. That kind of a mindset is there. Those are one of the challenges to Indian export community. Predominantly manufacturing generic medicines and some vaccines, the child immunization program vaccines or the COVID vaccines or whatever it may be. But in the days, there are so many players who are trying hard to replicate what we are doing today. So they are capable of doing this also. Take, for example, Bangladesh may be very small in size, but they have an LDC status up to 2032. The kind of privileges, the kind of exemptions what we had in patents earlier, they are also going to have it. And the people are going there from different countries, wherever they can have these exemptions to manufacture patent drugs without the permission of the manufacturer, and they can supply it to LDC countries. This is the area where we are facing a lot of competition. China is also working very seriously on this generic market. Generic market is a almost 420 billion market in the world. So ours is only 50 billion is our share. So if you continue to manufacture these conventional vaccines or manufacture these generic drugs, the coming days are going to be tough. So our industry need to focus on innovation, research and development of complex generics, and the advanced vaccines. And another one is reducing our dependence of active pharmaceutical ingredients and KSMs. And we have to develop our own API and the chemical industry to have more potential to export. So that unless otherwise, if you focus on these points, what I discussed before the conclusion, so don't expect that you are going to continue to have the same legacy of calling pharmacy of the world. So we need to do more homework, keeping in view of all these challenges.
I think that pretty much sums it up very clearly. So it's, I think drug companies have a lot of thinking and sitting at the drawing board really up ahead. Yeah. With that, we'll draw this conversation to an end. And from the BL team and myself, thank you so much for your time and your incisive comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.